Thanks for watching Endgame Economics. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It's completely free for you, and it helps us continue making more videos like this.
All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. We're going to unpack some pretty dense economic data today that shows how compounding, systemic forces have fundamentally altered middle-class wealth in the UK over the last 15 years. When we look at the data from 2008 to today, what we don't see is one single catastrophic event. There's no specific villain here. Instead, the sources reveal this slow, bureaucratic accumulation of structural shifts. So today, we're really getting into the numbers to understand exactly how the math of everyday living has changed so drastically for millions of people.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's contrast the super comfortable baseline of a 32-year-old in 2008 against the exact same demographics reality today. Back then, your typical marketing manager might have bought a nice semi-detached house for around £165,000, enjoyed a yearly holiday, and genuinely felt this sense of forward momentum. Fast forward to today, that same investment might only secure a flat worth £315,000, but with significantly higher mortgage payments. Real wages have completely stagnated, bills have surged, and that expectation of upward mobility, it's basically stalled out. So the big question is, how exactly did the math just stop working?
Well, to understand how we got here, we're going to let the data speak for itself across 5 interconnected themes: the 2-decade wage coma, housing and energy traps, the rise of stealth taxes, paying twice for services, and a massive generational wealth transfer. Let's get right to it.
Section 1, Wage Coma. 2 decades lost.
Okay, we have to start with productivity. Now, the UK's productivity gap with France and Germany has nearly tripled to 16% since the 2008 financial crash. Basically, productivity is the absolute engine of rising wages. Think about it. If a country doesn't produce more per hour, its workers literally can't earn more per hour. Before 2008, Britain was keeping pace just fine. But the data shows that while other nations recovered and kept growing, British productivity just flatlined, averaging a measly 0.5% annual growth since 2010.
And as the Neutral Institute for Fiscal Studies points out, this stagnation means real wages actually aren't expected to return to 2008 levels until 2027. According to the Resolution Foundation's math, this 2-decade stagnation is costing the average worker around £15,000 compared to pre-crisis trends. So the foundational issue here, the root of the whole thing, is that the economic pie simply stopped growing, meaning households have fundamentally less purchasing power than they historically expected.
Moving right along to Section 2, Housing and Energy. Stagnant incomes colliding with soaring costs.
Look at this staggering drop. 20 years ago, 55% of young adults aged 25 to 34 owned homes. But today, that number has totally collapsed to just 27%. The property-owning democracy that historically defined the British middle class is, right before our eyes, structurally transforming into a permanent renting class for younger demographics.
And you don't need a math degree to see the impossibility here. This perfectly explains why 5 million young British adults are completely trapped living with their parents. Over a 20-year span, inflation-adjusted house prices shot up by 152%, while young adult incomes only grew by 22%. It's just a massive, undeniable divergence between what houses actually cost and what people earn. It's completely locked an entire generation out of what used to be the primary vehicle for middle-class wealth accumulation.
Adding to all that pressure, the UK went from having some of the cheapest electricity in Western Europe back in the early 2000s to the second most expensive today. The new baseline energy bill sits 44% higher than it did in the winter of 2021. And here's the kicker. While 38% of that goes to wholesale gas, look at how 62% is driven by network costs, levies, and standing charges. That means before you even flip a light switch or boil a kettle, the fixed costs of just being connected to the grid are historically high, which takes a huge bite out of those already stagnant wages.
Section 3, Stealth Taxes, Invisible Revenue.
Now, fiscal drag is a quiet but highly effective mechanism. It pulls millions of ordinary professionals right into higher tax brackets without politicians ever having to announce a rate increase. Because let's face it, raising the tax rate is super visible and incredibly unpopular. So instead, the government simply freezes the thresholds at which you start paying those higher taxes. As inflation naturally rises, your nominal salary rises to keep up, and boom, you get dragged into a higher tax bracket, even if your actual real-world purchasing power hasn't improved one bit. This simple, quiet freeze creates an absolute mountain of revenue. The Office for Budget Responsibility actually estimates this will raise over £55 billion annually by 2030.
It turns 4 million people into accidental higher-rate taxpayers and catches nearly 725,000 skilled professionals in what's known as the 60% tax trap. That's a severe marginal tax rate created when the personal allowance is tapered away for anyone earning over £100,000.
And then we have the utter absurdity of council tax. Believe it or not, this is still based on property values from April 1991. We are talking back when Vanilla Ice was topping the charts. Because the bands have literally never been revalued, the system is highly regressive. A teacher living in a $150,000 house in Hartlepool today actually pays more in raw council tax than a family living in an $8 million mansion in Westminster. It's wild, right? It disproportionately penalizes middle-class homeowners, especially outside of London, taking an ever-growing chunk out of their monthly budgets.
And for those raising a family, you are hit with this compounding list of expenses that makes the simple arithmetic of having children almost impossible for typical dual-income households. According to the data, UK parents are spending nearly 30% of their after-tax income on childcare, which is one of the highest rates in the developed world. Add to that a recent 22.6% spike in private school fees because of new VAT applications, plus the reality that today's university grads carry an average of £53,000 in student debt before they even earn their very first paycheck. The financial squeeze on families is absolutely relentless.
Section 4. Paying twice. Failing services. So, with the NHS elective waiting list currently ballooning past 7 million patients, an unspoken social contract between the middle class and the state has effectively been torn up. Historically, the trade-off for paying high taxes was free, super reliable healthcare at the point of use. That was the deal. But today, with waiting lists extending into literally years for non-emergency procedures, that guarantee has effectively vanished for millions of people.
Driven entirely by desperation and actual physical pain, families are drawing down their life savings to pay out-of-pocket for a parallel, private healthcare system right on top of their national insurance. Take a knee replacement, for example. That can cost £15,000 privately. Middle-class families are out there raiding their emergency savings, putting necessary medical treatments on credit cards, and essentially paying twice. Once through taxes for a system they can't access in time, and then again in cold, hard cash for private care, just to regain their basic quality of life.
Which brings us to our final theme today, Section 5, Wealth Transfer, the generational shift.
Let's talk about the triple lock. This was originally introduced to guarantee that the state pension outpaces both inflation and average earnings. Now, while the sources highlight that it genuinely and importantly helped fix historical pensioner poverty, the data also clearly shows it now structurally tilts the entire benefit system toward retirees, and it does this at the direct expense of the working-age population who are actually paying for it.
Because of this, we're seeing an incredible structural wealth transfer. The intergenerational foundation calculates a net withdrawal, so the difference between what they will receive from the state versus what they actually paid in, of over £220,000 for people currently entering retirement. Today's young people are essentially funding a level of state generosity that they are mathematically unlikely to ever receive themselves.
Compounding all of this is the housing data. Because 74% of over 65s are homeowners, they hold the vast majority of housing wealth in the country. We are talking an estimated £4 trillion in assets waiting to be passed down. Life outcomes in Britain increasingly depend on inheriting these massively appreciated assets rather than earning a salary, because, well, as we saw earlier, a salary alone just isn't enough to buy a house in this market anymore.
Which leaves us with this really vital question to ponder. If hard work and a good salary are simply no longer enough to secure a comfortable life, what exactly does the future hold for the UK's social contract? The data points pretty directly to a shift from a merit-based economy to an inheritocracy, where your financial destiny relies way more on what your parents bought in the 1980s than your own productivity today. It's a fascinating, if sobering, look at how deeply interconnected our economic policies truly are. And that wraps up our deep dive into the data for this explainer. Thank you so much for learning with us, and keep asking the big questions.